Welcome to Mild Moodcast, a podcast meant to explore mental health through the lens of another human hanging on by a thread. I'm Bianca, a registered mental health counselor intern, soon to be LMHC, here to chat about the topics we don't get enough of. So grab your headphones and let's dive into the crazy world of mental health. It's going to be a wild ride. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Mild Moodcast. I have been having the most frustrating morning, particularly because they did something, as I said before, to Adobe Audition, and trying to figure out how this freaking thing works when you had it down is not fun. So they did something weird with my volume. If you notice, the volume in my weekly recordings is a little bit different. I've been trying my best to adjust it. I've checked all my settings, I've done all the things, but something's just not right. I don't know. I think it's going to end up needing to be just a computer restart to see if maybe it helps. Either way, I've gotten some workarounds for now, so no big deal. I wanted to say that last week I had attempted to record on StreamYard again because I still haven't found my camera naturally. So I haven't made myself record. And I was listening back to the episode and it was so rough I couldn't keep listening. So I'm so sorry for last week's episode. I have a tendency to be on. And like there's a camera on, so then I'm just on. And that's what I didn't like about the first half of the what the hell is it called? The first season of this. I just felt like I was on. I felt like it wasn't conversational and I didn't like it. And I started last week's episode the same way because I knew that there was a camera on me. Even though I hid it, I didn't keep it in the same screen. So I wasn't looking at myself the entire time and I ended up not posting it anyway. But I like caught it, a couple minutes in. I was like, oh no, or a few minutes in. It's like, yeah, I sound like I am in instructor mode. And I did not want to be in instructor mode. That's not what I've made this about. I really just made this about, me sitting here talking. Of course, it's informative. That's the point, right? But I don't want it to be informative like you're listening to a fucking documentary. That's not what I created season 2 to be about. That's not what I created this to be about, literally at all. So I'm gonna try because eventually I would like the videos to start again, but I'm just not sure how to get comfortable with being videoed and being chill, I guess, or maybe not worrying about the video. So if you got any tips, throw them at your girl. But I just wanted to say that because I've been thinking about it for days. When I tell you I overthink certain things, whew, okay, we overthinking. But today should be much better, much more relaxed. I don't have the camera on me and I'm waiting. I didn't end up liking the angle anyway, which is why in the beginning I didn't use StreamYard. I think I had used it once, maybe twice, and it was cool, but it's just not my favorite way to get my videos up and going. The quality just isn't the same either. Well, anyway, I'll go ahead and get to my disclaimer and then let's jump into today's topic of confused but attached living with anxious-avoidant attachment. Oh, but before I do say that, I just want to say if you have been here for the other episodes, even if you haven't listened to every single one, thank you. Thank you for being a listener. Thank you for taking a second to check out this podcast. All in all, it's been a lot of fun. I have not felt like this was a chore one time so far. And my heart is just so happy to be able to share things with you guys. And as always, if there's ever a topic you want me to talk about, if there's something, like, send it my way. I would love to look into it and give my take on it if I can. All right. As always, while my podcast is meant to spark reflection and curiosity, it is not a replacement for therapy. If you're navigating heavy emotions or challenges, please reach out to a professional. Therapy is a safe space to process and grow. So let's talk about one of the most confusing and exhausting attachment styles out there: anxious-avoidant. Now, I'm not talking about the dynamic between two people, like an anxious person chasing an avoidant person, but when that contradiction lives inside you when you are both the one who craves closeness and the one who runs from it. When you're texting someone one day like they're your emotional lifeline, and the next, you're panicking because they texted back too fast. It's emotional whiplash, and it's real. Today, I want to dive into what it really feels like to live with anxious avoidant attachment inside your own body, where it comes from, how it impacts your relationships, and what healing actually looks like when you're both the chaser and the runner. If that sounds like you, buckle up. We're getting into it. And surprise, 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 this is mine. I am the anxiously avoidant, attached, closer to securely attached every single day. I want the closeness, but not like that. Maybe beginning of that sounded a little too dramatic for you, and that's okay because it can look different for other people, but ultimately it has the same ideas. So the style is sometimes called fearful avoidant, and honestly, the name kind of says it all. You're afraid of being left, but also afraid of being too close. You crave intimacy, but the second you get it, your nervous system hits the brakes. It's the exhausting, heavy on exhausting, push and pull where you long for connection, but you don't fully trust it when it shows up. And I think this is really where it hits people. Like, yeah, okay, it's here, but is it really? You idealize closeness, but you also brace for the moment it disappears. So you find ways to emotionally micromanage or sabotage situations to stay in control. And the most frustrating part, you know you're doing it. You know that you're pulling away from someone you care about. You know you're reacting with way more intensity than a certain situation calls for. But in the moment, it feels like survival. Your body is reacting long before your brain can catch up. So let's go back a bit because this pattern didn't come out of nowhere, right? Most people with anxious avoidant attachment grew up in environments where love was inconsistent, confusing, or even frightening. You might have had caregivers who sometimes they met your emotional needs and sometimes they didn't. You never really knew what you were going to get when you walked up to your parent, your caregiver. Maybe they were physically present, but sometimes emotionally distant. Maybe it wasn't sometimes emotionally distant. Maybe they were always emotionally distant. Maybe love was conditional. You had to be good, helpful, or quiet to receive affection. Or worse, maybe the person who loved you was also the person who hurt you. That's a whole different level of nervous system chaos. So, what happens? You learn to associate closeness with danger. You want love, but you don't trust it. You learn to quite literally scan for signs that it's going to go away, or worse, explode. And you also learn that maybe it's safer to keep people at a distance, even though being alone hurts too. This is survival based attachment. Your brain and your body, they're trying to protect you. It's not irrational, it's adaptive. But that doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because it's the way that we've always done something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do for you. So, what does it feel like inside, right? What does it feel like on a day to day level? Because it's not just about how, you relate to other people, it's about how you relate to yourself. It's like this state of being in constant tug of war. One part of you wants deep soul level intimacy, the kind of closeness that makes you feel seen and safe. But another part of you is like, run now. This is too much. It feels like the closer someone gets to seeing your soft spots, the more your body wants to shut down or disappear. You might find yourself ghosting someone you were obsessed with just a week ago, or panicking because you said something vulnerable and now you're convinced they're going to leave. You replay conversations. You send the paragraph text. You delete it. You send it anyway. And then you feel sick. There's this deep fear of being too much and not enough at the same time. And there's so much shame attached to that because you start asking yourself, why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just relax into a connection? And the truth is, you're not broken. You're not too much or too little. You're trying to protect yourself from pain in the only way your system has learned to. And it always resonates so hard with me because I have considered myself a runner forever. But in a way that, like, I've always valued emotional intimacy, but I never really let myself fully be seen. And a part of that is because when you have this attachment style, you tend to choose the people who aren't going to want to take that on anyway. You're attracted to avoidance naturally. So they might take it, but there might not be that reciprocation of emotion. There usually isn't. So of course it like feeds that tug of war. So not only do I try to have control over what the outcome is going to be, and I try to brace for if and when it's going to end, but then it's also reinforced by the person that I choose because then they're not receptive to the times where I feel like it's going to end, right? Unfortunately, this attachment style doesn't just live quietly in your chest. It leaks into every part of your relationships. You might idolize people really quickly, putting them on pedestals without ever really knowing them. Overshare early on, thinking that vulnerability will create connection. But later, you're going to panic because, well, now you've said too much, or at least that's how it feels. This is kind of what I was talking about a minute ago. Feel addicted to people who breadcrumb you because their inconsistency mirrors what you learned in childhood. I have said to so many people, well, even if this relationship was like the one with my dad, or even if the relationship was like the one with my mom, talking about their parent, at least this one feels like love. So I'm accepting of the same behavior from childhood because it feels a little different. That one doesn't feel good, does it? Mm-mm. You might emotionally shut down the moment things feel safe or stable because your nervous system does not recognize stability as love. It recognizes it as chaos. I have also said on many occasions that chaos feels like home, but it's a different type of chaos. It's going to recognize this as, oh no, this is not what I need. And then when things are chaotic, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm safe here. Even though you're constantly stressed out, you're constantly anxious. I don't know how my mouth just tried to say the word anxious, but you're constantly anxious in this relationship, but that's comforting. And then there's the push pull with texting, calls, or plans. You want to reach out, but the second they text back, your stomach drops. You want to be invited, but when you are, you're suddenly exhausted or irritated. You want closeness, but it feels like drowning. It's amazing because even though this can play out in romantic relationships, it also plays out in friendships, in work dynamics, even in therapy. Anywhere there's intimacy, this can show up. But it isn't just about thoughts, it's a somatic experience. It lives in your body. Your attachment system is tied to your nervous system. which means it's less about logic and more about survival cues. An anxious avoidant nervous system is always scanning for danger, whether that be real or imagined. You live in hypervigilance mode. You look for tone changes, slower replies, subtle shifts. You anticipate rejection or engulfment before it even happens, and your body reacts accordingly. And damn, if this is not so fucking relevant, because I'll be the first person to say I notice every little change. Every change. I notice texting tone, but also in person, if your shoulders are sitting at a different height, I can tell there's something wrong. And that is because I have lived in hypervigilance mode for so long. Every shift I pick up on, as though it was my professional job to have to track this shit, which is so crazy. But it's the truth. And you might be able to relate to that. And texting is it's so hard to convey like a person's mood. It's hard to understand if they're using, voice text. And I usually try to say, like, I'll even overcompensate for myself. Like, hey, if you start to see a ton of punctuation, it's because I'm using voice to text. Because sometimes I associate periods with like being angry. I think a lot of us do that too. So we end up not using them because they just seem so, I don't know, definitive, just so like closing it down. And I think I just have a very bubbly personality that I'm like, even though my sentences end with periods, do they? But, the tone. You might freeze emotionally or dissociate or have a sudden wave of panic that makes you pick a fight or withdraw. Personally, I don't think I've been the type to pick a fight in situations like this. Obviously, I can't remember all of the years of my life, but maybe picking a fight, if that doesn't resonate, looks more like beginning to question, are you sure you're okay? Are you sure you're okay? Is everything okay? Are you positive? Because it doesn't feel like it's okay. And now the other person who likely wasn't experiencing anything different gets frustrated. And that starts a bit of an issue between the two of you. And if you've never felt secure emotional attunement before, actual closeness can feel like a threat. You might mistake safety for boredom. Calm might register as flat or suspicious. And that's because your baseline has been shaped by inconsistency. Your system, honestly, with any of these attachment styles, has to unlearn what's familiar and begin to tolerate what's healthy. And that might sound crazy because, like, what do you mean tolerate what's healthy? Well, it starts with tolerance, right? Learning how to create space for a thing. So maybe not tolerate in the way that you or we would traditionally understand the word tolerate, but make space for it to exist without feeling like there's something wrong with it. So, how do we change this? It starts with awareness, but not just in your head, in your body. Get out of your head and into your body. Begin to notice what happens inside me when I start to feel too close to someone, or just close to someone in general. When I share something vulnerable, when I don't hear back right away. Next, practice emotional regulation. It's not your job not to feel triggered. It's your job to stay with yourself when you are. That might mean naming your inner parts. This is the anxious part of me reacting. The avoidant part is trying to take over now. Grounding yourself with breathing, touch, or movement before responding. Reminding yourself that duality exists. It's okay to want closeness, and it's okay to be afraid of it too. You also have to slow down intimacy. Let people earn your trust. And I know that this is going to sound crazy uncomfortable. Slow down intimacy. Why? Because it's worth it. Because your nervous system needs repetition to believe new truths. Letting someone in slowly is not self sabotage, it's self protection done wisely. I just happen to look at the clock and it's 12:12. So if that's not confirmation, I don't know what is. We don't have to rush into things. Personally, I get really uncomfortable when people like me too fast. And I say that because, like, obviously you could be attracted to me, that doesn't bother me. But if we just started talking on day one and on day two, you're telling me all these wonderful, beautiful things about me and how much you like me and da 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 da, that's an immediate red flag for me. Not because I don't value closeness, but because why did you get there so fast? I need time to get there. And I think that's something that I've been very fortunate to carry because not everybody is like that. Some people take the attention and go, oh my God, I love this. But then the person ends up pulling back later because they didn't really take time to pay attention. They liked the way something felt and they went for that. I don't want to like the way something feels. I don't know what's happening to my voice in this moment. I have cleared my throat like 40 times. Just kidding. I've done it like 3 times, but still, I don't know where my voice is going while I'm talking about this, but I don't want to go for something because of the way that it makes me feel. And that sounds silly, but it feels so good so fast. And that's what she said. But no, slow it down. Take it a day at a time. Learning that it's okay to share parts of you, and it's okay to take a little bit longer to share some other things, but we are creating connection. Last, reparenting. That deep inner work of being the safe, emotionally available caregiver you never had. Learning how to talk to your inner child in moments of panic. Learning how to stay present when your system says run. That's what builds secure attachment. Not changing who you are, but becoming more consistent with how you love yourself. And I really want to highlight something there. Reparenting. I want you to look at it like this for a moment, if you will. We can't change the past. We cannot shove an emotionally available parent into your timeline. It's not going to happen. Now, if you're one of the beautifully fortunate few whose parents have decided to go to therapy and try to work on things and do them differently, amazing. And I am so happy for you. For the people who do not have that, and honestly for you too, even if you have one of those parents who's been able to do all of those things, hear this. It shouldn't matter. And I cannot express this enough. It shouldn't matter. Because ultimately, it is us who has to understand, come to terms with, deal with our experiences in every moment of every day. I have to self soothe. So I cannot rely or expect to rely on someone else to do that for me. Period, point blank. In a perfect world, we all have parents who show up for us and teach us right from wrong. They teach us how to be emotionally available and emotionally present. They weren't verbally abusive, they weren't physically abusive, depending on your situation. They showed you what a healthy relationship looked like, but it's very likely that they didn't. So, since they didn't, we have to create that security net for ourselves. We cannot spend our entire lives waiting on someone else to get it together because they never provided it for us, because that doesn't create growth within you. Of course, it sucks to be able to look back at your childhood and say, damn, here's something else I didn't get. Let me just go ahead and add this to the list of things my parents never did for me. But in what way, other than validating that emotion, does that serve you? How does that teach you who to be going forward? How does that teach you to be a better partner, a better friend, a better business person? It doesn't. So we have to be able to show up and show out for ourselves, to be emotionally available to our inner self, to listen to our inner child, to sit with it and say, what didn't you get and how can I help you now? Because if we rely on other people to do that for us, if we put people on a pedestal, they are going to disappoint us every fucking time. Every time. And that's because it's nobody else's responsibility to show up for you but you. I always say that we are supposed to love people with our overflow, not have them fill us up. Of course, talking to someone and loving someone is going to fill your cup 100%. I'm not saying that it's not going to, but we cannot be in a place of deficit and expect ourselves to be filled by someone else because they're just going to give us a splash. They might give you half the cup, but what about the other half? You got holes in your cup and your liquid is leaking out and you're wondering why you can't maintain certain things. And it's because you're expecting other people to show up and fix it for you. Mm-mm. Patch your own holes. Be there for that inner you. Stop trying to run away from the work that needs to be done because that's the easy way out. The easy way is to say, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. It makes me uncomfortable. And again, I say, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. But nothing is going to truly change until you take that action. So, reparenting means giving yourself what you never got and not waiting on other people to do it for you. So that way, if and when they show up and they give it to you, now it's extra. Now it's like amazing. I also get that too, but I didn't need it. Because people are fucking inconsistent, you guys. They're inconsistent. So the second they take it away, if you are in a place of deficit and you just need it, and that is what has been filling you this entire time, now you're in a place of being depleted, of feeling exhausted, of feeling sad, because you waited for someone else to do it for you. So we have to show up for ourselves so that if someone else shows up, it's wonderful. And if they don't, it wouldn't make or break you. That doesn't mean from an emotional standpoint, it's not going to suck if they decide to dip. Of course it is. But they just weren't what built you and kept you going. It was just an addition. I hope that makes sense. I know that this attachment style can make you feel like you're always the problem, like you ruin every good thing that comes your way. But I promise you're not broken. You're just scared. You have learned to protect your heart in ways that made sense at the time. And now you get to learn something new. Healing any attachment style isn't about becoming perfect at relationships. It's about becoming safe enough in your own body to stop running from love or begging for it. You don't have to stay in the loop. You're allowed to choose peace. You're allowed to feel safe. And you're allowed to fucking backslide, man. Because every day is not going to be perfect, but every moment is a choice. And I will die on this hill. Every moment is a choice. You're going to be triggered. That's life. It's about how you handle that matters. If this resonated, I'd love for you to share it with someone who's been caught in this pattern too. Healing is personal, but it's also collective. The more we talk about it, the less alone we feel. And if you're doing this work, I see you. You're doing the hardest part. Staying present with yourself. Thank you guys for listening. I hope this episode resonated. And if anybody came to mind, send it their way, like I said, because maybe they're going to need this message. I love you, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Mild Moodcast. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. If you have any burning questions or topics you'd like me to cover, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me on YouTube at Mild Moodcast and Instagram at Mild Mood Therapy. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to explore the wonderful world of mental health together. Until next time, stay curious and keep smiling.